Hey guys, welcome to my channel. This is The Forgotten Storytellers and I am Lauren. I am so glad that you guys are here. This video hopefully will kind of be the introduction video on my main page. So it'll be kind of the video that everyone sees if they click on my page. And that's because I wanted to introduce myself, my channel, my goals, my aspirations, all of those things, and kind of have a space for you guys to get to know me as a person and also to get to know my channel a little bit better. Now, a little bit about me. So I currently live in the States, but in August will hopefully be moving to Albania. So this setup behind me with my bookshelf, I have two bookshelves, will not be in very many videos, simply because I can't take all of my books overseas. It's just not financially possible. But I am in the process of buying a Kindle, so I'll be able to still read a ton and all of that stuff. So I have been a reader for almost as long as I can remember, and I love stories. I think that stories are so vitally important to a society, and that every individual has stories to tell and naturally tells stories. Everyone is a storyteller. Some people are better at telling stories than others, but everyone by nature is a storyteller. So much so that our brains, when we sleep, when we turn off, create stories, which I just think is so cool. It's really interesting. But one thing that I am really passionate about and an advocate for is the idea that stories tell us so much about a culture, a society, an individual, a time period, whether they're fictional stories or non-fictional stories. Sometimes the stories that people tell are the best way to understand who they are, but also to be able to put yourself in their shoes, which I feel like during this time is even more important than ever. It's always been important. But with everything that's going on in the world, I think that this is a time where putting yourself in other people's shoes, people who look different than you, who identify differently than you, who have lived in different times than you, is so vitally important. The Forgotten Storytellers is a term I actually started using in college for historians. I'm a historian by training. I currently teach high school history. Hopefully next year that's what I'll be doing in Albania, is teaching high school and middle school history. And I started using the term forgotten storytellers in reference to historians because the best historians are storytellers. If you've ever had a bad history teacher, or if you've ever read a really boring history book, it's because they don't understand how fundamental storytelling is to history as a discipline. And so I had this whole system of categorization for all of my professors, even my non-history professors, as to what kinds of storytellers they were. So I majored in history in college, kind of started formulating this idea of forgotten storytellers with those classes. But I also minored in international relations, and one group of people that really kind of captured my attention and my heart, and I thought deserved a lot of attention, in part because they were facing so much persecution and still are, was the refugee community. Whether Muslim or not, there was so much going on with the refugee crisis, with the civil wars, all of it, which is still such a big issue. And I noticed that a lot of my classmates and a lot of the people I was interacting with had some really strong biases against people from the Middle East, regardless of where from the Middle East they were, what their religion was. There was this kind of presupposition that they had about that. And so I wanted to learn more about their voice and where they were coming from and fight any of my own prejudices. And then also be able to relate to people who needed someone to listen to them. You know, when you're a refugee, you're leaving your home, and I can't even imagine being forced from my home because of violence. And so I kind of started applying the term forgotten storytellers to marginalized groups. And then the summer of my sophomore year, I believe it was, I read Frederick Bachman's My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry. And I love studying other cultures. I've always loved world history more than American history, although my love of American history has grown and my interest in it has grown a little bit over the years. But I've always kind of had this focus on history outside of the US, and even history outside of Western history. I was being very vocal about hearing other voices. So I read Frederick Bachman's book. And I don't remember exactly how this came about, but basically I realized that it was a translated work and that he was not American. And I honestly felt a little ashamed, like I had diminished his voice by assuming that he wrote in English and that he was American. So what did I miss? What did I misinterpret? What did I misunderstand? Because I assumed that he thought the way that I did, that he came from the same background I did, that he came from the same culture I did. So even though in my classes and in my academics, I was really pushing for diversity and allowing all people to speak, that wasn't being reflected in my personal reading life. So I started to be really intentional about reading books written by authors of other ethnicities, from other countries. And so as I've kind of been on this journey, I thought, wow, I would really love to share this with other people, because I don't believe that learning can happen in isolation, but also I'm a verbal processor. And so sometimes I read something and I'm like, oh, I just want to talk about this with someone who's also read this book, or I just want to talk about these issues because I think they're really important. And YouTube, BookTube, seemed like an ideal platform for that. I had been watching BookTube off and on for a while, since 2015, but hadn't been very active in the community. I did temporarily try to start a channel, which I will not tell you guys the name of because those videos are real embarrassing. So we're restarting. And so I started thinking that I would love to have a channel that features voices that are often forgotten, or don't have as big of a platform. You know, even looking at my bookshelves, a majority of the authors are white male, either British or American. And I have a couple, quite a few actually, Australian authors as well, but that kind of white European perspective. And I've since, you know, kind of started to expand it. I have a whole shelf that's actually the one right above me, not behind me, but like above me, that is dedicated to works of translation, works that are translated, and then works written by international authors, with the exception of English authors. So I've been thinking about this channel, planning this channel, for quite a while now. And then a couple weeks ago, George Floyd was murdered by a police officer. And I thought that it would be insensitive to start the channel then, because there was so much hurt in my community, so much hurt in the BookTube community, so much hurt specifically among the Black community. I'm also a dancer. I do a lot of the social and vernacular dances, blues, swing, things like that, which are all fundamentally African American dances. And so I took some time to listen and to grieve and to listen some more and to really analyze myself as an individual. And I realized that I still have a lot of work to do. Though my desire is to be an ally to marginalized groups, I am not the best ally. And I really want to get better. I want to learn. I want things to change, starting with myself. and the kinds of things I talk about, the kinds of things I read, the people that I listen to. And I might do a whole nother video on that. So I am changing the format of my channel a little bit. Instead of doing kind of the traditional booktube videos, you know, TBRs, book hauls, things like that, my channel is going to be predominantly vlog style. And then sit down discussion videos, because like I said, I don't think learning can happen in isolation. And so I want to create a community of people who are learning. And I want to take you guys along with me on my journey of learning, on my journey of figuring out how to be an ally, figuring out how to be an accomplice to the Black community and the other marginalized communities. And my hope is that one day the Black community can bestow the honor of the title of ally upon me, because that is not something you can give yourself. You can't call yourself an ally. You can work to be an ally, but until your actions reflect that, and the community that you're allied with acknowledges that, it's, you know, I don't know. I don't think you can really be an ally. So the kind of books that I will be reading, I first of all want to be very clear. I'm still reading some popular books. I'm still reading books by white authors. But I want a majority of my books to be written from people who are different from me, or feature characters who are different from me in some fundamental way. Whether that's the country that they live in, the time that they live in, their sexual orientation, their political orientation, their ethnicity, their country of origin, their belief system. All of those things are books that I really want to dive into. So I am American, white, female, straight, Christian. And so I really want to understand the world around me. And I don't think it's possible to have compassion or to love people well unless you actually listen to them. And this is one of the ways that I am going to be listening to people who are different than me. One of my hopes for this channel is that we will create a community where we can elevate voices who aren't always heard, and prop them up, but also where we can learn together and call each other out. If there is something wrong with what I'm saying, you know, I'm still learning. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to say things that are wrong or even racist. And I want to create a community where we can call each other out, keep each other accountable, learn, and become better allies for any community that's marginalized, any community that doesn't always have a voice, that has to fight for their right to exist, or even for their right to be who they are, regardless of whether or not I or you agree with them. And so that's kind of the community I want to create. I think it would also be really fun to have discussions, live shows, for diverse books with people who are actually of that identity. So, you know, whether it would be reading a book that features an LGBTQ plus character, and I can have a guest who identifies in the same way, their sexual orientation is the same as the main character, or similar to the main character, or similar to the author. So that's one thing that I would really love to do. But we're not quite there yet. That's like the dream, the ideal utopian world. So yes, like I said, just wanted to introduce you guys to my channel, tell you a little bit about my heart, what I want this channel to be, and I hope that you will join me on my journey of education, on my journey of learning to become an ally, to be a better person, to learn how to love people well. Thank you for watching, and I will see you later. Oh. That's not good. All right. Okay. Let's try this. It like, I don't know, it cut off the top of my head. Anywho, so like I said, I really believe that stories, we are gonna try this again. So, mostly vlog style, and shoot, there were other things that I was gonna say. Oh,